Hello, I'm Sara Black.
And I'm Theo Black.
In this series, we take turns revisiting the movies of our youth and ask ourselves, does this hold up?
Why did we like it?
Was it actually good?
Come with us on this journey of amusement.
Self-discovery.
And mostly awkwardness.
Hey Theo, what did we watch?
A Knight's Tale.
Again?
Yes. Spoilers. Always spoilers. In any order things are talked about. Who knows? Spoilers.
Today's cocktail? Very old wine. Not that old. Not like old in a good way. It's fine. It's fine. We need to read that.
It might work.
Okay, we can do this.
Yes, we can. Today, on To Childhood and Beyond, we watched A Knight's Tale. Last time on this series, we watched Baby Boom.
That was my fault.
It was. This one, though, was my fault. Because as a child, I had my own issues, and Theo wanted to grow up to be a brave, courageous, knight who jousted, I guess. I wanted to be Heath Ledger, probably.
A Knight's Tale is the story of a poor young man who takes advantage of circumstances and his friends in order to become the most powerfulest jouster? Something. He wins. So, this is your To Childhood and Beyond, but I saw this movie first. I definitely had a thing for Heath Ledger, starting from a television show he was on called Roar, which no one remembers or talks about. I think he was then in 10 Things I Hate About You. I think that would have been before this.
I think that's what he got famous off of.
And when this movie came out, I was a freshman in college, and me and my girlfriends went across the street from our dorm to the dilapidated cinema that is no longer there anymore at University Village at USC. And I think it was like $5, and we saw it, and we loved it, and we had a great time, and I loved it, and I had no idea just how many times I would be seeing this movie in the future. Although, probably it was my fault that you even saw it the first time.
It might very well be your fault. Yeah, so, I don't remember how we came into possession of the DVD. Somebody bought it at some point. I then took over the DVD. Much like The Mask, although that was a VHS and I didn't watch it nearly as much as I watched A Knight's Tale, because A Knight's Tale was a DVD. I had my own computer at the time and I would play it on loop while I played video games. And I was 11 when it came out, and I think I got a hold of a copy right after that, like right when it came to DVD.
Yeah, because at the time we watched The Mask, we were living in a much smaller house. No one wanted to watch TV upstairs by themselves.
We didn't have our own rooms.
Yes, by the time you were watching A Knight's Tale, you had your own room.
You sort of had your own room.
I sort of had my own room. We had a lot more autonomy over what we watched.
Yeah.
Because you could watch whatever you wanted in your room.
Yeah. And so this isn't quite the same as The Mask, because as very young Theo, I probably thought The Mask was cool and suave, or maybe not suave, but something charming about him, I don't know. And so I wanted to be like The Mask because I wanted that sort of energy, that sort of, hoo-ha! But watching A Knight's Tale, I think as sort of preteen into teenage years, in fact, I mentioned this to a friend of mine, and he was like, yes, I remember when you watched that a million times. I definitely was the kid who was more of a loner. I played a lot of video games by myself, or with my sister, and sometimes with my friends I had, but mostly by myself. I read a lot. I did all my homework in class, so I spent all my time at home watching movies and playing games, and so that was sort of my world. And so seeing Heath Ledger, who plays William, be this brave, courageous guy who, reaches beyond his stars, really, I think, meant something to me as sort of trying to be more and to be brave. I mean, subconsciously. I don't think consciously I was aware of that. I just played it on loop.
I think he wanted to change his stars, not reach into them.
A man can change his stars.
Damn it. So let's talk talk about the movie. I did like it the first time I saw it. I think it's a fun movie. But on subsequent and repeated viewings, it falls apart a little bit. I don't want to nitpick it. It has a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes, so clearly the popular view is that it is not the best movie in the world to begin with.
That I believe is just below passable.
What?
So just in broad strokes, it starts with text on the screen, which is often a sign that they're worried you won't understand something. The text on the screen describes jousting, which is then, I think, later explained twice in the movie.
He needs 3 points to beat you, so a broken lance won't win it for him. He has to knock you off the horse.
I know how to score, Roland.
This is a sign that they're not confident that their movie is working, I feel.
A match? It's 3 lances.
Of note, this movie is written, directed, and produced by Brian Helgeland, who was co-writer on LA Confidential with Curtis Hanson. So he knows how to tell a story, and he also did Mystic River. Both of those are adaptations, but still.
Well, he's still working now. He did Legend.
Yeah.
Wrote and directed recently.
Yeah. But in general, A Knight's Tale feels like it's trying to do too much. There are a lot of scenes that set up nothing. Like William Watt, who's played by Alan Tudyk, and Roland, who's played by Mark
Addy, who's in the first season of Game of Thrones. He is, I forget the first name, but he's the king.
Strip his armor. I'm riding in his place.
Their master has just died, and William wants to take advantage of the circumstances to enter himself in and win them a little money.
Yeah.
And his friends, Roland and Watt, protest this to have a scene that has conflict in it.
You have to be of noble birth to compete.
A detail.
And he gets them to agree to go with him. And so they do.
If the nobles find out who you are, there'll be the devil to pay.
And pray that they don't.
There's a lot of stuff like that, where... And it's a 2.5 hour long movie.
It was surprised us that it was 2.5 hours. We were like, I think this is an hour and 30, hour 40. No, it's 2.5 hours.
So there's inconsistencies like that, or maybe plot points that are started that don't really go anywhere. Bits of conflict that don't have any greater meaning and don't attach to anything else.
For the beginning of that movie, and as the movie follows, I think the inherent conflict is supposed to be the danger of jousting. Because Roland and Watt like Will, and they don't want him to die, seemingly. And I think that is supposed to be the conflict. And no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, because the beginning of your film should really set up the rest of the film, so conflicts that occur there should grow, and it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't at all. In general, I'm going to say the middle sags, because at some point, William decides that not just being the bestest jouster in all the land is what he needs.
William, the tournament champion! I'm not champion until I defeat Adamar. Adamar withdrew.
And the conflict is that he can't win because the other guy isn't there.
Adamar's been called back to the Free Companies. The Black Prince commanded it. Could be gone all season.
And he doesn't have any trouble winning every other joust. There's no risk of that. The only risk is that he might lose against this one guy who he can't fight because he's somewhere else. This is not conflict that stirs you. You're like, he can just come back and then they'll joust and it'll be over. It's not very deep.
There's no even proxies of Adamar. There are other jousters, even one named Colville, played by James Purefoy. And that's a cool thing that happens, but it's not like a messenger of Adamar, so it doesn't really work.
And meanwhile, there is a romance that just in general doesn't work. It's not very well written. The dialogue between them is not... There doesn't feel like much connection between them.
It's a bit more of a romance via plot.
Yeah. They're
Barely.
both the most attractive young people in the movie, right? I mean, they should be together.
Rufus Sewell's pretty hot.
It's like when people are like, oh, you're short, he's short, you should be together. Why shouldn't that kind of be how it works in a movie?
Hey.
Which is made a little worse by the fact that they do some odd shot choices from time to time, so they have a very emotional discussion at one point with a long shot. So you get, like, no connection. You are as unconnected from them as possible.
To be fair, I think in that scene they're supposed to be disconnect. This shows that there is a disconnection between them. But yeah.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Was that so?
Yes.
And the last kind of broader flaw is I feel there's inconsistency in the comedy. One of the big jokes of the movie is that they play modern music. And that the characters seem to even interact with modern music.
Yeah.
She wears couture outfits that would not be available to even the richest of people at that time period. But it doesn't seem to be saying anything. It's just in there to be funny. There's a Nike symbol that shows up on some armor, and it's like the juxtaposition is supposed to be funny, but there's nothing else to it. Like, if the movie were about looking back on the past with modern eyes and how backwards things seem to be, maybe that would have some, but it's not.
It's not.
They do a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Well, there's plenty of anachronistic things in there, too, just for the sake of having them for a feeling.
Yeah.
But nothing deeper than that, really.
So it's fun. I mean, I like all the music that's in it, but I end up kind of, it's not always even played for comedy. It's not silly. It's just people dancing.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch people dance.
Yeah, it's fun.
And along with that comedic inconsistency, the William character, because there is a sincere core to this movie, isn't actually that funny.
Next time I face you, Count Adamar, you look up at me from the flat of your back.
He's supposed to be this kind of impetuous, headstrong young man.
Keep winning the sword and we'll be rich.
I won't compete in the sword again.
It's your best event.
No, it's tournament champion or nothing at all.
Who, against everyone else's wishes, just like has to be the noble, brave, courageous knight that appeals to young Theo so much, but really he comes off a little bit like a dick
Well, don't you ever get tired of putting on clothes?
and not very funny at times. He's just Heath Ledger, so he's still handsome. And I would say, without really pulling this movie apart, like, those are the big problems. That is the reason why. That and the 2.5-hour running time that includes montages of him practicing jousting. Like, if you want to see jousting, like, here's your chance. There's a lot of jousting. If you want it explained to you, watch this movie.
1 point is awarded for breaking a lance on a man between the waist and neck.
But despite all of this, on rewatching, you still liked it.
The first thing I should mention is that I watched this so many times that I did know it line for line. Reaches beyond his stars. And I found myself quoting the lines as they were happening as we were watching. And so...
I can do that with some movies too.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It's fun. It makes the movie more inherently fun when you can do that. And I really feel for the William character. You know, I already mentioned little Theo wants to be brave and courageous. But beyond that, I liked his determination. There's a certain kind of grit. It's the drive that you have to be the best. We're both competitive. We come from a competitive family, and I like that competitive nature of he has to be the best, and even when he's the best, he knows there's someone out there that's better than him. And so, on like a subconscious level, I assume, at that age, that's what was really working for me for that character. On top of that, in a less sort of like dramatic way, I just think the characters are all fun. What I think is funny.
Concentrate.
Dandy cakes!
I think Alan Tudyk is hilarious. Of course, I also like him in Firefly, which is what everybody knows him from, probably.
Mm-hmm. That and Spam-A-Lot, I think.
That and Spam-A-Lot. And he's great. I also like Mark Addy. He's not really a comedic character, but he's sort of the straight man.
What, color is my tunic tonight?
Green.
And he's like the mentor. He doesn't have a great reason for being there per se. The character motivations are a little rough, but I almost want him to be I want him to teach me how to joust. So I like all the characters, and I like all the acting. I think it's acted pretty well.
I agree, and it's definitely not for lack of enthusiasm on the part of the actors.
Behold, my Lord Ulrich, the rock, the hard place. Like a wind from Geldland he sweeps by, blown far from his homeland in search of glory and honor. We walk in the garden of his turbulence.
Yeah!
No one is winking at the camera, acting like they don't want to be there. There's a lot of energy and charisma.
There's heart to this movie, too.
There's heart to the movie.
And to the way they act.
Yeah, you can imagine them being friends, offset even, who knows, I don't know. But they have an interplay, timing between them, all that works pretty well.
Oh, and you can do better, can you?
Of course I can.
Good. Why don't you show us then?
No.
No. Listen, if I'm going to all this effort, you best learn to dance. Now ask her nicely.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned Paul Bettany, who plays Geoffrey Chaucer, and he's also hilarious, and he has one of the best entrances to a movie ever.
Yes.
Hey, look, maybe nobody should be riding. The horse is not what he used to be, and we need him, right?
Fine.
We have just played it for you. He has a nice butt.
Yeah. And he gives his speeches his all.
In Italy, when he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishings of her dreadful Turkish uncle.
He plays this character, that's the thing, that's the heart. He plays his character so straight and over the top, but not like he's over the top, Paul Bettany, but Chaucer is over the top.
I'm good!
Yeah.
I feel like all of the characters you can get into as characters and not as actors. Because, like, except for William, it's Heath Ledger, because, I don't know, just because Heath Ledger maybe, but, like, I think of, that character as Geoffrey Chaucer, not as Paul Bettany.
Yeah. Well, but I think you got into William, though. I think to a young man, that kind of brash, a little selfishness.
Yeah, arrogance.
Might have seemed strong.
Yeah.
Did it bother you at all in this watching?
In this watching, I had more trouble than in the past because he is a bit of a dick to his love interest.
You're just a silly girl, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of just pulling his friends along. And I feel like there is a genuine connection, like you talk about, between them. But yeah, it didn't hit the same way. But I think nostalgia helped me get over that.
Yeah.
So...
It's also a sport movie.
Sarah, talk to me about sports.
I will watch sports movies, and if they are good movies, I will like them. I don't actually like sports very much.
I like sports, generally speaking. I don't watch them all the time because it's not as high up on my priority list, but...
It's when you lived with us that we knew we had ESPN as a channel. Other than that...
Not so much.
Yeah, we never watched ESPN in my house.
I keep track of the Dodgers and stuff, and that's about as far as it goes these days. But this is ultimately sometimes a sports movie because it's just two people jousting, and let me tell you, those jousting scenes are awesome. They're not set up to be too, dramatically, intense. It's all about having fun. And that's what makes those scenes better because of it. And it almost makes it easier to rewatch and just sort of not worry about the fact that, well, there's not exactly a deeper meaning to that part of it.
I like when Adamar and William first come up against each other and Adamar manages to knock Heath Ledger's helmet off. I like that part. And later they repeat it when I think he knocks Adamar out. And he's just kind of...
Yeah. Well, they repeat the same style of shot, and then they do the "you have been weighed, you have been measured," and
you have been found wanting.
Yeah, some sort of biblical thing.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I watched the director's commentary track on this a lot. Thank you, Brian Helgeland. And he talks, I believe, about there's a few places where he puts in like Bible references, and he makes the joke that it's so that he can let his grandmother know that he paid attention in Bible school.
You desecrate the house of God!
I feel like that might be part of the problem with the movie, is that he just put things in because they tickled his fancy. And that gives it a charm.
Yes.
Because the things that tickle his fancy are kind of interesting, but it doesn't cohese as a whole.
It is just all over the place. It is wacky. Like, the film techniques are wacky. Like, he's doing different things all the time. Like, slow-mo, specifically between two jousters, and the one who's going faster is, I think, the one who's going to lose, because the one in slow-mo is just on another level. The long shot in the church, which is a cool shot and kind of works for that moment, if not for the movie as a whole. There's cuts on music that are interesting, because he starts a dance scene between Jocelyn and Heath Ledger on, sort of older sounding music. I don't really know what age it's from, and then cuts into the David Bowie song. And it's like, sure, it's just weird. All that kind of stuff is great. And it's just so much fun to watch, and to sort of let go of some of my sort of critical thinking about movies and just be like, this makes no sense. As a teenager, I definitely thought this movie was really funny. It's a comedy, it was funny. As an adult, it's a comedy, not as funny. It still is enjoyable, and because I thought it was funny as a kid, it really played well for me. I mean, Paul Bettany and Alan Tudyk are great. They have a lot of chemistry.
I'm gonna lose everything! That's why it's called gambling.
When the Ferris catches that piece of lance. It's just funny, but it hasn't aged perfectly well. There's a few jokes that are a little sort of vaguely homophobic. Not like super. I mean, Alan Tudyk kisses Heath Ledger. But it feels like it's supposed to be funny because it's two guys kissing. I don't know. I don't find that funny anymore. So that doesn't age as well. But I still enjoyed it anyways.
Yes! Yeah!
And at the base of that enjoyment is I think it's an archetypal story. And I even think that's why they said it, or why Brian Helgeland said it in medieval times, is because it's supposed to be just sort of the base level of, a man, needs to find his courage and to find his place in life.
A knight's tale as a boy's tale.
Basically.
A boy becoming a man kind of a tale.
Yes.
I'm a knight.
And I think Big Theo, like Little Theo, still has self-esteem issues. As we get older, we grow and we develop, but we don't ever actually leave who we are behind.
Yes. And
even though I'm in a lot different place in my life by any number of reasons, I still just like that idea of the sort of archetypal idea of really trying to strive to be something more, really trying to change your stars. All the time in life, I find myself stuck in one situation, in a job I either don't want or isn't right for me, and I want to change and do something different. And maybe it's just that simple. I mean, we're not in the Middle Ages. I wasn't a jouster, and I'm not a sword fighter now. But it's still that kind of idea of I like the idea that you can always change who you are, and you can be something more than you think you can.
I dubbed thee Sir William.
A 58% on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't look very good, but it's reductive. Those kind of percentages don't really tell you whether or not you're going to like a movie. I mean, if you really look at it, it means that, hey, there's slightly more than 50% of a chance that you will like it. But it really depends on your own taste. I think it's a cute, sweet, fun movie, and it's not much more than that.
So, of course, as mentioned, we watched Baby Boom before this, and it really made me think, because at the end of that one, you sort of got to the conclusion that, well, it really doesn't mean anything much more to you anymore. It meant something as a kid, and it doesn't anymore. And I was sort of curious, what would A Knight's Tale mean to me? Because, you know, Baby Boom has a 74 on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's even better than A Knight's Tale. That, to me, these scores only mean so much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
especially to an older movie.
It's 16% better than A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, it's 16%.
Whatever.
Better. Yeah. And I think I decided that, yeah, it really isn't exemplary in any way. It's not a movie that really deserves anything more than probably me, somebody who saw it as a kid, watching it again as an adult. There are some cool things it does, and maybe the only thing it has going for it, and I'm not sure if we could say Baby Boom has this or not, but A Knight's Tale has a lot of heart in the characters, in the way it was directed, in the way it was written. And I think that might be the only reason to me, like, I think of it as positively as I do, is because I really feel it has heart.
We've been watching movies that we loved as children. And we're going to do something different next time. Because there is a movie that I saw as a child that I thought was a horror film. And it terrified the crap out of me. And it was called Weekend at Bernie's.
Join us here on To Childhood and Beyond. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you just saw, please hit the thumbs up button down below. If you want to see more, subscribe down below. We do more reviews about our childhood movies. We also do reviews about movies we've never seen, movies that are bad. We do all kinds of movies because movies are awesome. Also, leave a comment down below.
You might say hi if they do.
I might say hi if you do.
But above all else,
keep watching movies.